Hey, happy Wednesday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com. Today is Wednesday, so that means it's a Wargame Wednesday, folks. It is Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. This is episode 264 of The Daily Dope. So, welcome aboard. I am going to be reviewing Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk, in just a couple of moments. Boy, isn't that a mouthful, eh? Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk. So, no news today because after my review, I'm going to clear up, pick stuff up off the table here that I've got set up. And then I am actually going to do a little bonus. We are going to take a first look at the Battle for Ramadi, which is from Tiny Battle Publishing. So this is a solitaire game, so this looks pretty interesting. Once again, another topic that you would not expect from a wargame company. So for an example, like Armageddon War has like Hezbollah and ISIL and stuff like that in it. Battle for Ramadi, the player is actually taking command of Iraqi forces trying to retake the city. So we are going to take a peek at that in just a few moments. So gotta get a little soda here down in the Duct Tape Studios. I was kind of running around for a little bit. Got down here a little later than I was hoping to and started the stream, and then I realized, oh wait, I hadn't poured myself anything to drink. So, yes, as I watch a little hair go floating past. Weird. Anyway, if this is your first time joining me, this is a very, very casual stream. I talk tabletop gaming, do reviews, do unboxings, sometimes talk a little bit about pop culture, but mainly the focus is on tabletop gaming. So this is a live stream, so if you are watching live on YouTube, there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways that I kind of keep some of the stranger commenters at bay. But if you have a question, or maybe you just want to say howdy, or maybe there's something about the Battle of Kursk or Battle for Ramadi that you want to ask, or maybe have me focus on a little bit, be sure to chime in. I will respond because I keep my eyes peeled. So Glenn Darren's popping in. Howdy, Glenn. Yes, happy Wargame Wednesday. Bing. And I got a twofer. I should, it's funny. I've done some twofers lately, and it's never on a Tuesday. So it's never two for Tuesday. It's a two for Wednesday today. So as I mentioned, I am going to be reviewing Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk, in just a second. Wanted to correct something. I was talking yesterday about, I said it was the Magnificent Mrs. Maisel that I was watching on Amazon, and the title was wrong. It's the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. So really good show. Really enjoyed it. Counterproductive Games is popping in. Hey, howdy. I believe Counterproductive Games is affiliated somehow, maybe with Flying Pig Games. I'm not positive, but if I remember correctly, CPG, I guess I'll say. I thought, weren't there some videos in the Kickstarter for the Battle of Kursk, kind of like gameplay videos or something like that? I don't know. Maybe I'm cracking up. Maybe I'm just losing it. Anyway, so without further ado, let's pop on into the review, because I'm going to be looking at Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk. from Flying Pig Games. It's designed by David K. Van Hoos. I believe that might be the correct pronunciation. And of course, it's also designed by the aforementioned Mark H. Walker, with artwork provided by Ilya Kudrasov. Just taking a stab. I think it's close. I might be close. The game is for 2 players, ages 12 and up. Plays in 60 minutes or more, depending on which scenario you're looking at. It does carry an MSRP of $100. It is currently available. It just recently became available, I think within the past few days. It is currently on sale for $85 if you want to jump on in and check it out. I am going to give a little bit of an overview of how to play. I'm not going to do a detailed how to play or anything like that. Kind of give a bit of an overview and then, of course, share my thoughts. Hey, John Vogel's popping in. Good to see you, John. Yes, and good evening to you as well. Good evening to everybody. Let's pop on over to the other camera here. So I've got one of the maps laid out. I've got the rules off to the side here. I've got the game box because first of all, I'm just going to show that there is a second map here in the box itself. I don't have both laid out because number one, they wouldn't fit on the table here, but just kind of give you an idea. I did an unboxing where I pretty much showed off all the components for the Battle of Kursk. So I will get the box out of the way. So a few things to discuss here. So obviously enough, the premise, the subject of this game is the Eastern Front, the Battle of Kursk, where that was the largest battle, armored battle in World War II. So, of course, we are going to have lots of tanks and armored fighting vehicles as well. So, we've got a variety of different scenarios as well. There are a dozen scenarios in the rules here. The rules are pretty easy to get into. I got to be honest, though. I do wish they had been presented a little bit differently. They're well done. Don't get me wrong. But sometimes it was a little difficult to find certain information. So, for an example, you have to worry about your unit's morale. And your morale actually helps you shake off casualties, is basically what it is. And the Germans and the Soviets both have different morales. Plus, depending on the scenario you might be playing, there might be different morale. Now, as far as their starting morales, it's located in one spot. You got to be careful that you don't suddenly somehow miss it, but it is in here during the rally phase. It says, unless stated otherwise in the scenario, the Germans' morale is 5 and the Soviets' morale is 3, which, granted, you see it right here, fine. I would have liked, because a lot of times, come on, if you're a war gamer, if you've been playing these games for a while, you tend to kind of skim through things and try to jump into play. So I would have just liked to have seen something where it just showed what the morale is for each scenario. That's all. Even if it's still 5 and 3, just say 5 and 3. And I would have liked that a little better. The other thing, too, is I think it would be a little more intuitive if the game rules were actually laid out in the order that you have a sequence of play. No big deal. It's not a huge thing. I would have just liked to have kind of seen that, because we have initiative, we've got drawing action cards, we've got the rally phase, fire phase, movement phase, close assault phase, housekeeping, which is super easy, aid and focus, and advancing the turn marker, which, big deal, you're advancing the turn marker. So, all in all, there's like, a dozen pages of rules, not even. So we're really looking at 10 pages, 9.5 pages of rules. So very, very easy to get into. There are some kind of special rules that don't come into play a lot, like mortars and artillery and airstrikes, things like that. that is covered within this as well. Will point out, if someone is looking for a really super detailed, super crunchy simulation, this is probably not going to be it. This does really capture the feel of a large scale battle, especially when we've got both the maps together and we've got all these different counters. We've got loads and loads of counters for the Germans as well as the Soviets. So, but I do want to just point out that if you're not going to get into like the smallest nitty gritty in this system here. So Platoon Commander is actually a series of games that's from Tiny Battle Publishing. In fact, if I remember correctly, let me pull the box back out. Nope, it shows it's Flying Pig. I thought at one point Battle of Kursk was showing Tiny Battle Publishing down here because the Platoon Commander series is sold through Tiny Battle Publishing. So there are, I want to say, 3 titles in the Platoon Commander series. There's Sticks and Stones, which is a hypothetical World War IV, actually, if I remember correctly. Then we've got Korea 1950. Then I want to say India and Pakistani War. So those are available from Tiny Battle Publishing. So this is a deluxe edition. So if you're like, oh wow, hey, this looks pretty cool. Oh, and I noticed for $25 I can get Korea 1950 on Tiny Battle Publishing. Keep in mind, you're not going to be looking at the same sort of components. So let me get these rules out of the way. So of course we've got the map here. It's going to show various different terrain. Here's some of the stuff that we're going to be utilizing. So we're going to have our turn record track. So we've got up to 20 turns. Some of the earlier scenarios are kind of learning scenarios, so they're not real long. I want to say the first scenario is actually 7 turns, and there aren't a lot of units in it. In fact, if I remember right, there aren't even any tank units. There's some armored fighting vehicles in it, but they're not tanks. So we've got our turn record turn. We've got a game turn marker, which I basically would flip it over to whoever's got the initiative for the that turn. Now there's an initiative box down here, which you would maybe think, hey, Robert's popping in. Hey, Rob Moffat's here. Hey, Rob, good to see you. So this little initiative box here, you would kind of think, oh, wow, you probably throw like an initiative counter or something there to show, oh, yeah, well, okay, so the Germans have the initiative or the Soviets have the initiative. No, you don't. Actually, what you do is we've got these 2 counters, aid and focus. And you can actually have one of the counters sitting down here. So because you're going to roll for initiative, you can actually re-roll with the focus. So it's kind of interesting, and I'll get to that in a little bit. So that is what this is off on the side. Of course, obviously enough, it's single-sided because that's going to lay on the table here. Then we got our handy-dandy player aid chart here. And honestly, I wish there were 2 in the box. There's only 1. But we've got our fire results table here. We've got a color explanation because all our ranges are shown in color bands on the counters. We've got a close assault table. Then over here, we've got our terrain effects chart. There are quite a few different types of terrain on the board, and some block line of sight. Some actually have different movement costs depending on if it's leg units, so basically kind of along the lines of, infantry, or if they're armored fighting vehicles. Then, depending on where the defender is in the terrain, are there going to be any changes to either fire combat or close assault? So keep in mind as well. It's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. The one thing that I point out to really keep an eye on is the movement cost and changing elevations. Changing elevations is going to cost an additional movement point for that unit. So it's important to remember that, because going from here to here is an elevation change. Going from here to here is an elevation change. And it's easy to get caught up in the moment and forget that you have to pay an extra movement point. So that being said, let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at the units themselves. So let's get on in here, and I will kind of explain. There we go. I'll explain how these units are set up. Let me pop on ye old reading specs for this. I like Robert Moffat's like, drool. Yeah, this is actually, in my opinion, now this is once again just my opinion, this is the sort of war game that is going to kind of divide wargamers a little bit. And I'll explain when I do my summary. But one of the things I will say is this is actually an excellent title to introduce players who want to kind of get into wargaming. It's deep enough, it's got enough meat on its bones to really satisfy someone who is a longtime wargamer, while also not overwhelming those who are brand new to the hobby. So let me grab a quick sip here. Okay, so let's move some of this stuff out of the way so we can focus on just one counter at the moment. So we're going to focus on this Panzer IV. So what you're going to look at here is in the upper left corner, that is the armor attack value. So when the Panzer IV is attacking armor, this is what you're going to utilize. Glenn says, do I think Kursk will hold my 18-year-old's attention given I'm trying to get him into war games? Yeah, I would think it will. Yeah, most definitely. I'll show you a couple of things that I haven't gotten to yet, which will kind of change things up, shake things up a little bit. So it's not just that really dry hex and counter kind of stacking up everything and getting your tweezers out to move everything around. I'm playing one of them monster games. No, it's not. It's not like that. There are a few aspects to this that kind of throw new wrinkles into things. But so this is attacking armor. This is actually attacking soft targets. This is your armor defense. Now you'll also see, I think you can make that out, there's a little -1 there. So -1 is actually not good, but actually the armor defense of 4 is good. That little -1 means it's not up to snuff as far as a full 4. Hey, Kabuki Kid's popping on in. Hey, good to see you, Kabuki Kid. So down here, it's going to show that, like I said, this is for soft targets, so that's against infantry. Here, we see there's like a little explosion with a 5. Well, this area here, this is the movement allowance that this unit has. So it's got 5 movement points. Now, because it has that little blast marker there in blue, it means that this unit can move and fire. Normally, units cannot move and fire. They have an option of moving or firing. So many of the armored units have the ability to move and fire. And then down here, we have a close assault factor. So that is how you would read this counter here. So to kind of give you an example, the green, we're going to bring this on over here. So we see the range color explanation. So if it's a color black, it means it can only attack adjacent units. So it can only attack those units that are right next to it in an adjacent hex. So green, here's the green range. So short ranges is the next hex over, or 1 hex away, 3 hexes away, 5 hexes away is long range. Then we got orange, we've got red, and then we've got purple. Now, I do have to point out, this could conceivably be a problem for those out there who are colorblind. So, about the only thing that I could possibly think you might be able to do is if you had like a really small like pen, Maybe mark what colors these are with a little, G above it, like G for green, like maybe a little B below it. It's about the only thing. And of course, you would have to get somebody who's not colorblind to do that for you. But taking a look at, say, for an example, we've got submachine gun infantry here. Now, green is Soviet. Gray is going to be the Germans, the Axis. Easy way you can tell with the vehicles will be that the German units are all facing to the left, while the Soviet units all face towards the right. But for an example here, we've got submachine gun infantry. So this is platoon level. So these are platoons. So these represent about 40 to 60 soldiers. These represent 2 to 5 vehicles. But for an example here, we've got the submachine gun infantry. So they've got an armor attack of 0, and they could only attack adjacently. They have a 10 for attacking infantry and soft targets. They've got a movement of 2, and they've got a close assault of 10. So one of the cool aspects that I liked in Battle of Kursk is that, so for an example, this unit has a movement of 2. So if we look at the terrain chart effects, it's going to show us, say for an example, so moving through a city costs 2 for leg troops and 3 for armored fighting vehicles. You can get to the point where you may have, like, as long as you have a movement point and you have not moved, as long as the terrain that you're trying to move into is not restricted to your unit, you can move into it. So you'll never have a situation where that normally your unit could move into another hex, but the cost is too high for them to get into it. So that doesn't happen. I thought that was kind of cool, because a lot of times in some games, it's sort of like, sometimes you kind of get screwed that certain units can't possibly enter certain terrain, which they should be able to enter into. This is good visually, as the pieces are big and you only really need one chart to play off of. Yeah, really, this is all you need. You need the terrain chart, and you need the combat results, the 2 tables, and the range explanation. So I'm going to zoom back out a little bit to kind of give you an idea here. All right, so let's say, as an example, let's get a T-34 out here. So we got a T-34, and we've got a Panzer IV. So let's say, as an example, the T-34 is attacking the Panzer IV. So let's say this has not moved. Okay, because see where we've got that little blast and it's blue? That means that you would actually be shifting to the left on the fire results table. So for an example, normally what we're going to do is we're going to look at the range, right? So we're going to count 1, 2. You're always going to count the hex that the target is located in. So that's a range of 2. We've got a green band. Green shows, hey, okay, so it's normal range. So we've got no shift. So nothing's changing on our fire results table. So we're not moving anything because of the range. So we see that it's got an attack value of 8. And this has an attack armor value of 4. So you're going to have 4 is the firepower left over that we've got. So we've got the 4 here. So now we're going to look at, okay, terrain effects. Well, they're out in the open. Well, it's hill, but so we take a look here. We see fire combat. Are we shifting to the left? So we've got a 1 and a 3. It says only if attached exclusively, I guess it should be attacked, really, exclusively from lower elevation, blocks line of sight between units on ground level, blah, blah, blah. So in reality, because they're on the same level, there is no shift for our combat. So what you're going to do is, in a situation like this, there'll be other things we're looking at too. Are they flanked? All these other different factors that could come into play. But luckily, no. We haven't. So what we're going to do is we've got a bunch of 10-sided dice. We're looking at its firepower 4 right here. We've got firepower 4. Now, if you notice, we can actually get into the negatives as far as firepower because there are actually some units that have an armor attack, which is a negative, which basically means, yes, it's within the realm of possibility that they could take out, they could score hits on a unit. It's just not very likely. So we've got the 4 there. Let's take a 10-sided die. Low is good, and 0 is counted as a 0, not as a 10. So those out there playing games, you're going to have to remember 0 is not 10 for this game. It is 0. So let's roll. So we get a 2. Nice. So that would be 3 hits. So normally what will happen is the first hit disrupts the unit. The second hit reduces it a step. So this does have step reduction in it. The third hit would remove it. Now, remember I talked about morale earlier? Well, morale is how you shake off these hits. So in reality, you can look at it in a few different ways where you're basically... It says, hey, I'm watching your Naval Thunder vids. Hey, that's pretty wild, Robert. See, that's pretty cool. We don't usually get other people who cover gaming popping on board to watch. So anyway, how is Naval Thunder, by the way? I'll have to check those out because I'm a big Naval fan. Folks who follow the gaming gang know that I introduced my nephew and some of his friends, we're all like 17, 18, to Fletcher Pratt's naval game. Anyway, so for an example, we would sit there and we'd say, okay, so we've got 3 hits. The German morale is 5. So we need to roll 5 or less to avoid those hits. And the way you kind of look at it is, it's not just casualties. It's losing combat effectiveness. It's morale breaking down, things like that. That's basically how I kind of look at it. So we give it a roll, and ooh, that stinks. So the Germans would only be able to shake off one of the hits. So we would get disrupted and also a reduction. There we go. If a unit is disrupted, and it's important for you to know that with the various different units, you have what's known as an eligible unit. So an eligible unit is a unit that has not moved, it has not fired, and it does not have some sort of a status marker on it, such as disrupted. Now, if a unit's dug in, no, that doesn't count against it. So eligible units are able to move or fire or use opportunity fire. So a disrupted unit cannot move, it cannot fire, it cannot engage in close combat, and it can defend in close combat at half. So disrupted units are very, very vulnerable, and you're going to want to do your best to get these rallied as quickly as possible. So that's an idea as far as how your combat works. And the combat works the same way if you're using infantry. Let's grab some infantry units here. So let's say we got these stacked up. Now, the only time that you're combining units to attack is if they're stacked together. There is a stacking limitation of 2 units per hex. Here's an interesting aspect of the game. So if I were to stack these 2 units here, and the Soviets attack this stack where I've got infantry and armored fighting vehicle, the attacker has to tell me, who are they attacking? Are they attacking the infantry? Are they attacking the vehicle? So let's say, for an example, they say, yeah, well, I'm attacking the infantry, and they get some crazy amount of firepower and then they roll and they get, wow, they get 9 hits. Well, those 9 hits are not going to all take place because let's say they were attacking the infantry. The vehicle platoon is not going to take any hits. So it makes sense whenever you can to stack infantry with an armored unit, which historically makes sense anyway. You needed to have some infantry support for your armored units. So an example, if we had just infantry going at it, let's get some Soviets out here. Let's say neither one of these have moved or fired. Let's say the Germans are going to fire on the Soviets. So once again, we would take a look. We've got 4. So we've got 4 as the attack. Now we're not going to add up. We're not going to add up the attack factors here. What we're going to do is whenever you have another unit adding into the attack, yep, there you go, Roberts. Like combined arms. Yep, combined arms works. So what you're going to do is you would actually shift 2 columns up. So as opposed to sitting there, which is funny because if it's 4 plus 4, it's 8. Well, it's 8 anyway, shifting. So as you see, you're gonna go up by 2s. In fact, when we start getting further higher up, we start jumping by more. We start jumping by 4 and then 6. So for an example here, okay, so we've got 8. We'd be rolling. We get an 8, not so hot. 3 possible hits. Now the Soviets, as I mentioned, their morale is a 3 unless otherwise specified in the scenario. Sometimes the Soviets will, if they remain in a certain location, their morale stays higher, things like that. Yes, Tracks in the Mud is the expansion that we've got. Yes, that's, yeah, right. So the plus and the minus, right? So remember I was showing we had the minus here. That's a die modifier. So you get either pluses or minuses on some of the units, not all of them. It's just to change things up so it's not just simply, oh, always like an 8 versus a 4 armor, things like that. So to kind of give you an idea, there were 3 possible hits. We would have 1 was passed, the other 2 weren't. So what the Soviet player could do is say, okay, well, I'm going to take both of these and disrupt both of them. Actually, personally, I would just mark it with 1 counter, save the counters, to show that this stack is disrupted. Or if they wanted, they could say, okay, well, I'll disrupt 1 and take a hit. You know, step reduction there if they wanted to do that. There's also close assault. So close assault is basically you're going to sit there and you're going to total up your close assault factor. So this would be 16. So this is something that we actually do total up. And then we have 16. We look at the close assault down here, 1 to 1. So the first is defender, second is the attacker. How many possible hits you would have. You roll 1 die, you get an 8. 1 to 1 would be 2 possible hits on the attacker and 6 possible hits on, no, I'm sorry, 2 possible hits on the defender and 6 possible hits on the attacker. So when you're getting into close assault, you want to try to have like 2 to 1, 3 to 1. Otherwise, it can be pretty sticky for the attacker. That's for sure. Some of the other stuff to kind of show off here. So effectively, kind of walk through how the game turn breaks up. So we've got determining initiative. Each player rolls a 10-sided die. Whoever's highest is going to end up getting the initiative. If it's a tie, if it's the close assault combat factor odds ratio, yes, it is, Robert. So whoever's got the highest roll gets initiative, unless in a tie, whoever had the initiative the last turn loses it. So the person who didn't have initiative is going to get initiative. So after that, you're going to draw action cards. There are action cards in this game. And this is one of the aspects of the game that might not appeal to some folks who are really die-hard old-school grognards, because it's going to change some stuff up. So for an example here, we've got raise the morale of all Soviet Unions 1 point for the remainder of the turn. Schnell, schnell, +2 movement points for target units. Artillery barrage, turn the tables, another artillery barrage, airstrike, recon, intel, rally up to 2 units, reduce 1 of them. And so it's showing, okay, so this is what's available to the Soviet player, that's what's available to the German player. Each turn, each of the players are going to get 2 cards, and they may use these 2 cards. So it'll show when do you get to do this. So it'll tell you what phase. So for an example here, this takes place in the rally phase. This takes place in any phase. This takes place in fire or movement with the artillery barrage. Opportunity fire takes place in movement. Now you can do opportunity fire without having an opportunity fire card. So yes, so it is not card driven, but there are cards involved in it to kind of shake things up a bit. Some folks may not like this aspect because there's cards, there's luck. That's how it usually works. I like it. I personally think it's pretty cool. I like shaking things up. One thing that I do think is kind of odd is minefields. You can like pop out a minefield. And to me, I would think you would bust out a minefield when an enemy unit moved into a hex. You could say, oh, hey, ha-ha, boom, there's a minefield, baby. No, it doesn't work like that. So units can avoid the minefield. I don't know, just in my opinion, I thought it would be better if you could just go, oh, by the way, here's a minefield card. So we've got that. We have units that are dug in. We have barbed wire as well. So we get drawing the action cards, so we get 2 action cards. Then we get the rally phase. So effectively what we're looking at, let's just kind of do it like this, is you're going to roll your 10-sided die, and you're going to hope to roll their morale or lower to rally them. I'm like, oh my God, what is there not to like? Robert, come on. Okay, so for an example, I'll kind of go off on a quick little tangent. When I had been out to, well, I used to live out in Arizona, so I would go to Consim World Expo and cover it. There were folks out there who were just diehard, old school, SPI monster games that you were playing for. They were playing for 4 or 5 days and still have no resolution to it. Those are the kind of people who probably do not like cards in their games. So anyway, yeah, so you would be looking to, let's say, okay, this one here, nope, this one here, nope. Well, that would stink. So they'd be sitting ducks effectively. So we've got that. We've got, let me show these here. So we've got aid. I keep these separate, just like I keep the airstrike counters separate here so that they don't get mixed up with all the other ones. So we got focus and we've got aid. So if you notice on these counters, we have 2 dice, and this one has 1 die. Same thing, 2 dice and 1 die. So when these come into play, they're going to be 1 die. So you actually have an aid and focus phase in the game. So yes, the minefield does channel flow of enemy forces. Yeah, that's true. I just think, to me, it's sort of like, especially if somebody gets the minefield card and they play it right away, and you've got enemy units that are still like 4 or 5 hexes away, they shouldn't know that there's a minefield there. That's kind of how I look at it too. They shouldn't have that kind of reconnaissance where they'd know, oh yeah, so there's a minefield there. I don't know, it's just me. But yeah, the minefields, of course, obviously will kind of channel units to where you kind of want them to go. So, anyway, so we've got this aid and we've got this focus. So the focus, what the focus allows you to do is you can place your focus counter in any hex, and that kind of represents where the focus of, where the command is really focusing right that moment. Where it's kind of like, okay, this is where the heaviest fighting's going on, or this is where it's really important for us to win this. So this actually allows you to re-roll one die. But if you do re-roll, you have to keep that second roll. Then we've got aid. Aid is actually utilized during the rally phase. So if you had it on here, you would actually get to re-roll once if you failed to rally that unit. So of course you're going to utilize both the aid and the focus counters in areas that you're like, man, I really need this here and now. Now, if you don't use it, you can actually, when you come around to that phase again, flip these over to get 2 dice. So, and you always have these. You'll never lose these. It's not as if, oh, wow, I'm out of supply. I don't get the aid anymore. So the aid represents sort of more medical supplies and things like that being distributed to those units and things like that to boost their morale and stuff like that. I have not clipped these counters. I do not clip counters. I am too damn lazy to clip counters. So this is how they came. They were really well cut. They popped right on out. Really, really nice. So I thought this is another thing that's kind of interesting in the design, which some people may not like, but I thought that was pretty cool. So we've got the fire phase. So what happens in the fire phase is each side, starting with the side that has the initiative. Let's get some of the armor out here. Get some of the anti-tank out here. Show some of these cool counters off, because there's lots of stuff going on in here. Panzer V. We got tigers and stuff. We got the Stugs. So anyway, during the fire phase, you're going to take turns. So whoever's got the initiative is going to be able to make the first attack. And then you're going to go back and forth. So one thing you want to keep in mind is if a unit attacks, if it fires. All right, where are we at there? We got one. There we go. Say this unit fired. Well, no, that's a bad example. Let's say this unit fired. Okay, see, we don't have that little blast. So if that unit fired, it's not going to be able to move. It also will not be able to utilize opportunity fire. So let's say, okay, so I fired that, and then the Soviets fire. And then, okay, then it's like, you know what, I got these units down here, but I think I'm going to have a better opportunity if I use opportunity fire. I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until the movement phase. So you just keep going back and forth with your firing until neither side has any more firing to do. Then you move into movement. Now when you get to movement, now it's the side that's got initiative is going to move all of their eligible all their eligible units to move. So as opposed to taking turns back and forth like you had during combat, now you're going to have movement. So everybody on one side is going to move if they're able to. So let's say, for an example, let's say this moved in, and you would put a move counter on it. So all right, so this moved, so we know no opportunity fire here. So we've got dual-sided counters here. So we've got like disrupted, we've got wreck. Now they're not always the same. See, for an example, so we've got moved and a wreck. We've got wreck and disrupted. So just there's a ton of these. We got a bunch of these counters. So you can just keep them handy. Just have a pile handy so you can mark stuff off. When an armored fighting vehicle platoon is destroyed, you're going to replace it with a wreck. Like so. And just leave that there. So Robert said, you need an Oregon Limitations 2.5 millimeter counter rounder. No, I don't. You got to realize, I'm always looking at games in that. If I spent my time, just like for an example, as much as I really like Command and Colors, I would hate to have to sit there and be like, oh wow, I got a bunch of Command and Colors titles. I got to put stickers on all these blocks, because every day I am looking at games and I don't have time to be sitting there cutting counters, you know, so clipping counters. I'm not that anal about my games, although I will admit sometimes when you see, especially this is with like the small traditional size counters, you get the white, you know, just kind of hanging off there. Yeah, I kind of like those, but plus I do understand, especially when you got a big stack of counters. Remember I was talking about the big monster games where you're moving these stacks around with your tweezers and that. Yes, you need to have the counters cut, otherwise they're not going to squeeze in next to each other on the hexes. I get it. I understand. Okay, so then we have close assault. And close assault is effectively you're attacking into another hex, an adjacent hex. Some units, so for an example, I'll show you this one here. So this anti-tank gun shows it's got a 1 with a little asterisk. That means it's got a close combat or close assault factor of 1 as a defender, not as an attacker. Also, we've got vehicles here where if we see it's got a movement with a circle in it, that means that this can actually transport units. So this can transport a platoon of Soviet infantry. So you just stack them like this. Now remember, I told you there's a stacking limit of 2. This does not count. This would still count as 1 unit. So you could actually have, if you had 2 Studebakers that were carrying infantry, then you could actually have 4 counters in that, because it really is only counting 2 vehicles. I personally would not do that because that would be a sitting duck. Because if you are transporting units and you take hits, it's possible that your passengers are also going to take hits too. So we've got that. Then we got housekeeping. Housekeeping's super easy. All housekeeping is go around and pick up counters like this. Counters like this do not get picked up. These stay out there. The disrupted stay out, wrecks stay out, but the fire and movement, you're going to collect those up. Then you've got the aid and focus. Now, once again, the aid and focus is where you get to determine, okay, so where am I going to put these? If it's been sitting on a unit and you haven't used it, you get to flip it over. You can also, remember I mentioned you could actually put it into the initiative to re-roll your initiative if you're really got to have the initiative, which I never did. Cameron didn't either. My nephew is 17, and he really dug this. He really liked it. Took him, he hasn't played a lot of war games, so it took him a little bit to kind of wrap his head around some stuff. Mainly strategy, not like, the rules. So we got the aid and focus phase, and then we basically just advance the turn marker. That's it. So, of course, each of the scenarios is going to have victory conditions as well. So, for an example, we've got the first scenario, it's taking the high ground. So it's basically who ends up holding on to this hill. Let me zoom back out a little bit. All right. So it's going to tell you action cards. So for an example, in the first First scenario, it's pretty easy. It's just some Soviet infantry trying to hold off some German infantry with some support. So it would say like Soviet player starts with 2 cards, German player doesn't get any cards. Soviet and German players receive 2 cards per turn from the start of turn 2. So it'll say special scenario rules, victory conditions. So to win, the German must control all the hexes on the hill. Well, by the end of 7 turns, it tells you it's 7 turns long. So all that info's in these scenario information here too. So, do want to mention there is also, do I have it down here? I might, I don't. I think it's behind me. There's also Tracks in the Mud, which is an expansion to Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk, which has more scenarios, has some more units. I will show that off in a little more, I think I'll show that off in a little more detail somewhere down the line. So all in all, really, that's kind of like an overview of how you play the Battle of Kursk. Now, keeping in mind, there's other stuff too. I mean, there's, you know, artillery, you've got airstrikes, you've got different things that the cards do, but really not a ton of like really difficult stuff to wrap your head around. Now, one thing that I don't understand, Mark Walker sent me this. I just showed up and it's just a deck of cards, and this is the Battle of Kursk bonus card. So these are bonus cards. I don't know. I mean, they're the same thing as these cards. I mean, they're different, but I'm saying they're basically the same concept. What I don't get is it just says bonus card. I don't know how that works. Yeah, there are some American units. So there's some Lend-Lease kind of stuff in this as well, because there's Churchills in this. Well, that wouldn't be American, that's British, but so yeah, so I'm kind of curious what these bonus cards are supposed to be for. I don't know. And there was nothing that explained what they were. They just showed up in the mail in an envelope from Mark Walker. And I'm like, okay, I don't know. So, is it, you know, you have the 2 decks? So when you're drawing cards, you can draw from here or here? I don't know. I have no idea. I should shoot Mark an email and ask him. So, yeah, we're getting in the lag again tonight. What's going on here? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it's showing we're dropping a lot of frames, so that's weird. It looks like it just started doing that. All right, just double checking. Let's see if I change this. I don't know what's going on lately. It seems like we hit something. Now, see, yeah, now it's no. It's not anybody's internet connection. Oh, so it was a mistake on the card back art. Okay. See, I thought that could be it too, but I thought, no, come on. Really? I mean, that's pretty obvious. It's different. I wonder were these maybe like a Kickstarter thing? Yeah, you can sleeve them if you have some backing on the sleeve. Yeah. Yeah, so it looks like we're still jumping around, dropping frames. But it shows we're doing huge kilobits per second jumps. So I don't know. But yeah, it's showing like almost 5% of our frames were lost. Now I just changed this to focus more on the quality of the stream as opposed to performance. Now and then it's dropping again, throwing up some drop frames. All right, so yeah, not much I can do when we're an hour into this and all of a sudden it does this. I don't know what the deal is. I honestly don't. because this happened last night too, and then everything cleaned up. Everything cleaned up. Everything was fine. It's like it's looking here like we're okay again. Alrighty, I don't know. Okay, so let's move over here. So, what do I think of Mark H. Walker's Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk? Damn it, there we go again. What is going on? Yeah, it's just jumping up now. We're showing, yeah, we're showing like 5% of the frames are being dropped. So let's jump in here one more time. Take a look at something here. Okay, so yeah, so it's weird. So it shows red, but then it's showing like huge amounts of kilobits per second. So yeah, that was kind of weird. It's still showing a bunch of drop frames, but I do have to point out I am streaming at 60 frames per second as opposed to 30. So that may have changed some stuff. All right, so anyway, I don't know. I'm not going to focus on this right now because it looks like everything's seems to be okay right now. Nobody said there's a lot of like buffering or anything like that. So what do I think of the Battle of Kursk? I like it. I think it's well done. I like the Platoon Commander system. It's pretty easy. It's pretty easy to wrap your head around. Granted, it's not going to go into the minutia of certain aspects of the armored fighting vehicles and the infantry as other games do. So, you know, if you're looking for like really, really, you know, serious simulation, no, it's not that kind of game. But then again, it's not a big fluff game either. I mean, it works with the history. So I really dig it. I think it's really easy to introduce new gamers to, new war gamers who actually have an interest, especially like World War II. Although I will point out that I think there are some gamers out there who will not like the cards. They won't like the little focus or aid counters coming into play, just because, you know, maybe they're too modern of wrinkles, or maybe because the cards throw, you know, it is very possible for one side to be getting cards that are pretty cool and the other side getting cards that are kind of like So on a scale of 1 to 10 though, I give it a very, very solid 8.4 out of 10. Really think it is worth picking up, unless you are one of these people who are like super serious about you know, like, for an example, if you were really into Advanced Squad Leader, I probably would not say pick up Platoon Commander Deluxe, the Battle of Kursk. For the rest of us, yes, I think it's a very, very good game. So what I'm going to do here is I am going to collect some of this stuff up. I will sort these things out a little bit later. But what I'm going to do is I am going to... yeah, it looks like we're okay. That's one thing I got to remember, too. When I see we've got drop frames, I need to remember that I am streaming now as at 60 frames per second, not 30 frames per second. So even if the frames drop off, it should be okay. So Counterproductive says, oh, I would say pick it up. Break their gaming habits. Oh, yeah. Okay, fine. One thing I got to ask while you're still here, CPG, if I remember correctly, wasn't this design originally supposed to use 2d6? I think this was originally supposed to be 2d6 and then it changed to 1d10. Anyway, all right, thanks for popping by. Have a good one. So I'm going to put this stuff away and we are going to take a look at the battle for Ramadi in just a second. As soon as I clear this stuff off. Okay. Yes. So I'm assuming the yes is the response to yes. It was supposed to be 2d6, not 1d10. Okay. All right. So I've got everything put away. So yeah. So I really enjoyed it. You'll get a lot of gameplay out of this too. And if you are considering picking it up, you probably want to do it sooner rather than later because you can save $15 on it right now. So usually carries an MSRP of $100, as opposed to right now we've got it for $85. All right, so Ghost World would know what time it is. Yes, that's right. I'm gonna jump in, pull down Lil Whizbub. Yes, Lil Whizbub, my pal. Because if you do like the Daily Dope and thus maybe the Gaming Gang as well, you already know that this is a not-for-profit production here. And D10s aren't used because D10s are more expensive than D6s. I think that's what happens with some companies. Yes, it's Lil Bub time. If you like the Daily Dope, if you like the GamingGang.com, please consider making a donation to Lil Bub's Big Fund at the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. This fund grants out 100% of all monies raised to organizations which care for special needs animals. So I'm not going to go on a lot with this tonight. Just so you know, if, like I said, if you dig the show, if you like the Gaming Gang site, by all means, please consider making a small donation. Okay, so just to talk about what's coming up on the rest of the week. Tomorrow, I am going to be unboxing and paging through, yes, the slipcase edition of John Carter of Mars. Actually, the official name is actually Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter of Mars, Adventures on, I think, a Dying Barsoom or something like that. So, Adventures on the Dying World of Barsoom. So, I'm going to be taking a look at this tomorrow. Then on Friday's show, which I think I'm doing in an afternoon, a special afternoon show, I'm going to review The Witcher, which is from CD Projekt Red and R. Telsorian Games, as well as doing a first look at the Dark War rebooted role-playing game from Mark H. Walker over at Tiny Battle Publishing. Okay, so, yeah, I remember I played a lot of Ambush, too, back in the day. Good old Victory games. Their Civil War game was really good, too. Played a lot of that, also. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the Battle for Ramadi from Tiny Battle Publishing. It's designed by Jay Ward with artwork provided by Ilya Kudrasov. The game is a solitaire game. It is for ages 12 and up. That's pretty much my guess. Plays in 1 to 2 hours and it carries an MSRP of $26. It is on sale right now for $23. I had Move Out and I had Ambush. I did not have Purple Heart or Silver Star or Battle Hymn or Leatherneck. So, but yeah, we played a lot of Ambush. We played a lot of B-17 Queen of the Skies. And we also played some Patton's Best, which was sort of a solitaire tank game. Whereas B-17, of course, was solitaire. You ran the crew for the B-17. Well, Patton's Best was with tanks. All right, so let's see what we've got here. So we've got the rules. So it is the final assault on the city, 22nd to 28th December 2015. So let's take a look at the rules here. So we got an introduction. It says the battle for Ramadi is a solitaire simulation of the fighting for the city of, guess what, Ramadi. in Iraq at the end of 2015. In this game, the player represents the commander of the Anbar Operations Command, the core level HQ for the Iraqi security forces, tasked with retaking the city from the Islamic State of Iraq and Al-Sham, ISIS. Rules control the factions of the ISIS forces. So it shows us the forces. So it shows us ground forces, ground assets, air assets. So we've got the ISIS forces. So it talks about setting up the game, playing the game, victory points, determining victory, turn execution, ISIS attack phase, operations interface. We got optional rules for drones, air support. So it shows us the forces here. Okay, I am not exactly sure why we've got these pages here. Because it's like combat factor 2. Well, yeah, it's on the counter, right? Oh, it's telling us the quantity of them too. All right, okay. So there are the ISIS forces. Then we got designer notes. Oh, so we got actually quite a bit of info. There's a little more info than I'm used to seeing from Tiny Battle Publishing. Yep, this is Tiny Battle Publishing, Robert. So it's got historical notes. Yeah, quite a bit here. All right, so really, rules-wise, what we got? 8 pages? Yeah, we got 8 pages of rules. Okay, so here's the map. It's actually 2 parts. 2 pieces to the map. And, of course, it's paper. Oh, maybe not. It's 2 things here. So here's the map. Let's move this out of the way. So here's the map here. All right, there's the football stadium. Government complex. I think that's what you're trying to take. You're trying to reclaim the government complex, but I think you need to actually take them out of all of the entire city for like an overwhelming victory. So we've got here. So we got ground asset pool, transfer box, air assets, casualty track. So we've got an ISF victory point track, we got an ISIS victory point track, and we have a game track. So we've got 10 turns here. So that is this. Then we got the counters, and the counters are actually big. They're about 3/4 inch counters. So guessing that they're going to be dual-sided as well. So really all we're seeing here is just says ops on it. So I thought they showed, I think for, yeah, here we go. Because I thought we had like combat factors here. So we've got 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey, we got U.S. Special Forces. Look at that. There we go. Bombers. There's the optional drones. It doesn't look like there's a, there's IEDs in this. It doesn't look like there's step reduction in this. Oh, there we go. So they're hidden. That's why we see this where it says assets, ISIS. You don't know exactly what you're going to run across yet. So that's what those are. Cool. All right. So we've got the 2.5 sheets of counters there. We got the maps and the rules, and that is what we find. Well, I'll put it in the bag later. When we take our first look at the battle for Ramadi from Tiny Battle Publishing. Yes, this is a boo ISIS. Yeah. Yeah, that's why Armageddon War is interesting, because you have to, one of the players has to play like ISIS, ISIL, Hezbollah. So pretty interesting. So I am going to get a chance to try to play this week. Check this out, because it is a solitaire game. So it only takes about an hour or 2 to play. Yep, just bust out some plexiglass and drop on, or plastic. Yeah, PVC. You're right. Um, Although, I mean, I always like mounted boards and stuff, but come on, for a $23 game, I'm not expecting that. So that is it for today's show. So as I like to always say, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, please visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you dig some of the videos on the Gaming Gang channel, by all means, please subscribe. Ring that little bell, because that will not only notify you when a new video goes up, it'll also tell you when the stream goes live. So, as I mentioned, I will be back tomorrow. I am looking forward to diving into John Carter of Mars. So, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday, and as always, thanks for joining me in chat, and thank you very much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff McAleer.